Welcome to the Revelations of Life channel. Share your story in the comments and it will be shared in the next video. Write your stories in the comments and they will be narrated in the next videos. Also subscribe and like this video. A young and beautiful woman sat in her office with a pensive expression on her face. Aliona looked in the mirror on the desk. As always, she was good, but she looked tired. And no wonder. The deal was not an easy one, but it still happened. However, Aliona Kurilova's thoughts were not about the deal. Today she received an invitation to a meeting of former classmates, and now she was thinking, does it make sense to go there? Lydia Gmazina wrote on social networks, Alina, on June 17, we're organizing a meeting of classmates to celebrate the 10th anniversary of graduation. We're putting together 5,000 rubles each. We will be very happy to see you. We'll let you know about the meeting place later. Whoa, whispered Elena, automatically looking at the calendar. Has it really been 10 years already? The beauty wiped away an unwanted tear, and they were not tears of light sadness, nostalgia, and tenderness for what could not be returned. It so happened that it was with the school years that Elena had the worst memories. Just the thought of them made Elena shiver, though. It was warm. The snarky message of the upstart Lidotka amused Elena. Add up 5,000 rubles, and we will be very happy to see you. Frankly, it sounded like mockery. Back then, many years ago, her classmates made fun of her poverty. And now you see, all of them would be very happy to see her. By the way, Lydia doesn't look good. The page is closed, but the former classmate's face was clear enough. She looked a little plain and old, and she's only 27. She used to be the best-looking girl in her class. Now, to go or not to go had for Elena the meaning of to be or not to be. Well, what am I thinking then? She chuckled to herself. Of course to be, and not just to be, but to show them that I am. Aliona assumed that the reunion would most likely take place in a restaurant. Well, the easier it will be to prepare a surprise for classmates, which will be remembered for the rest of their lives. How will look like a surprise? Elena has not yet decided, but it will certainly be associated with her bleak past. More precisely, with a very unpleasant type. Although there was a time when this very type was for Elena the cutest thing in the world. But, unbeknownst to herself, Aliona was immersed in memories. She tried her best to chase them away, but there was no way. Memories dashingly swirled her around in a whirlwind of events and images. Elena did not like to talk about her childhood, so few people knew that it was hard and joyless. Her life probably would have been different if it were not for a terrible event. It divided Elena's life into before and after, and the most unfortunate that the before was regrettably short. Elena's parents were in a terrible road accident. A drunk driver drove into the wrong lane, and the collision was inevitable. Valerie died immediately. Tatiana was a little luckier. Their daughter Aliona was building sound figures with other kids from kindergarten. The little girl had no idea that she no longer has a father, and her mother's life hangs in the balance. That day, Auntie Valia, her father's sister, came to pick her up. "Where's Mommy?" Frightened, the girl asked, as if sensing trouble. "And Mom and Dad haven't come yet," answered the aunt, and her voice trembled. But then Aliona could not give it any importance. Tatiana's body was badly mutilated. In addition, the young woman had suffered lacerations to her face, and it was caused by shards of windshield that had shattered to pieces. The doctors pulled her from the other side of the world and literally picked her up in pieces, the neighbors said in a low voice, thinking that little Aliona could not hear them. The injuries were so severe that Tatiana went blind. When her daughter saw her with a bandage over her eyes, she screamed wildly. The blindfold looked too ominous. Before the terrible accident, Tatiana had worked as a nurse. To become an invalid after working in a hospital for 8 years, you wouldn't wish that on an enemy. "What can I give you?" Tatiana exclaimed in despair and burst into tears. Aliona ran up to her mother and, soothingly stroking her, whispered, "Mommy, do not cry. Everything will be all right." Tatiana, still sobbing, held her daughter close to her. Since then, Alina never saw her mother's tears again. But more than once, she heard the silent crying of Tatiana, closed in her room. One day, when Aliona was already an adult and successful, her mother said, "You know, if it weren't for you, it's not a fact that I would have survived." There was practically nowhere to wait for help. Tatiana was brought up in an orphanage from an early age, and she had no relatives. Valerie's parents lived thousands of miles away, on the other side of the country. They were elderly, their pension was penny, so the young widow did not count on their help. Sometimes Aunt Valia came to see them, but she didn't last long. "I need to get on with my life," she once said. So girls, no hard feelings. Soon the relative met her betrothed and left for another city with him. However, Aunt Valia had a lot to be thankful for. After all, it was her merit that her Aliona was not taken to an institution. Sometimes her neighbor helped them. Irina Vasilievna cooked meals, helped with cleaning, braided Elena's pigtails, took her to kindergarten. The girl early mastered the simple science of housekeeping and learned how to tidy herself up. Now, at 27, as a self-sufficient and wealthy girl, Elena thought, "It is true what they say, there was no happiness, but unhappiness helped. But with what joy she would have given all that she has now, so that my father was alive and my mother healthy." Aliona went to school. She almost immediately became one of the best students, and at the same time tried to help the laggards. But her peers didn't accept her into their circle. The reason was her poor clothes. It's only at first glance the school uniform equalizes. Not at all. What about shoes? Outerwear, sports uniform? Kirillova stands near the church. My classmates giggled. "Aha, here's the coat. Shall we go too? They'll give us something too." These were silly, but harmless jokes at first. Aliona tried not to pay any attention to them. After all, she had better things to do. For example, her sick mother. So was it worth worrying about nonsense? As time went on, the harassment of her classmates became more and more subtle. "Alyonka, tell me, where did you get that vintage dress?" Litka Gmazina said sarcastically at the New Year's party in 6th grade. "In a garbage can," smirked Oksana Voronova. "No, Oksanka, take it higher. It's from Grandma's trash can," suggested Masha Kulikova. The situation was aggravated by the slight plumpness of Aliona. No, she was not fat. Aliona was just a big, bunched-up girl. One day a new teacher, learning that her name was Alina, said, "Just like Alyonishka from a Russian fairy tale, or from a picture by Vasnetsov, a real Russian beauty, big, stately." Of course, Elena wanted to say nice things to the girl, but it's not hard to guess how her classmates felt about it. The only word they heard was big, and as soon as the bell rang, they began to mock. "Big cowgirl, Alyonishka. Such a beauty does not fit in any picture. Exactly. She's only in a fairy tale. Once upon a time, there lived an old man and an old woman. They lived poor. Yes, poor. A bum. A beggar." At such moments, Alyona's eyes invariably filled with tears. But she mentally said to herself, "Just do not cry." After all, that's what they're waiting for. Deep down, Elena realized the rightness of her peers. Her appearance indeed left much to be desired. All of her clothes came from secondhand, from stores for the poor, and at best, from bargain sales. Perhaps if she had been more elegant, even a sack of potatoes would have looked great on her. But alas, how was school? Tatiana asked. "Everything's fine, Mom," the daughter answered cheerfully. "And how are you doing with your peers?" Mother guessed that they may well make fun of Alyona. Well, they have no money for good things, no matter what. And the girl probably wants to dress nicely. That's what she is, a girl, besides, almost a grown-up. "Everything's fine, Mom. We're friends, we hang out, you know, and all that. But you can't cheat a mother's heart. You know, Alyonishka, I've been thinking, maybe I should get a job." "A job?" surprised my daughter. "Work," Tatiana confirmed. We were told at the Society of the Blind about how people make beads, earrings, weave meshes of all kinds. Well, why not? Tatiana started making handmade bijouterie, and she did it. Alina came home from school and helped her mother. Occasionally, they were joined by a faithful neighbor. Finished products Alina handed over to stores or art salons. Irina Vasilievna advised selling at the market, but Alina immediately rejected the idea. "I don't want my classmates to see me there," she thought. "I don't have a life without it." And out loud she said, "Oh no, after school there is no strength left." Products, though infrequent, but bought. Of course, not God knows what kind of income, but some kind of support. Time passed quickly, and the life of a lonely blind widow, and her daughter has not changed. Money was then empty, then thick, and sometimes they had to starve and count every penny. In 8th grade, Alyona fell in love. Needless to say, this love was unrequited. But it couldn't have been any other way. After all, her first love was Igor, the son of rich parents, a big man and a womanizer. She knew that Igor was friends with Lida. Where was Lida and where was she, Alyona? The girl imagined that she and Igor were walking through the park, holding hands, then he kissed her. Igor proposes to her, getting down on one knee and handing her a ring. A beautiful wedding, and hey, Beggar girl, what are you thinking about? Lida giggled. The bell had already rung. Her minions, Oksana and Masha, were standing there. Prom night was approaching. Alyona wanted to be beautiful. What if Igor, seeing how good she was, would pay attention to her, ask her to dance, and then love and a beautiful wedding? With the money from the sale of the beads, Alina bought an inexpensive but cute dress. "Oh, a naughty girl," Igor exclaimed. "What is that rag on you?" Next to him stood Lida in a stunning outfit and giggled sordidly. The rest of the classmates also pulled up in anticipation of the show. "Guys, let's take a picture." Olga Ivanovna, the class teacher, called, "Don't stand next to that beggar." Oleg Kunitsin's mother smirked. "She'll ruin the whole photo with her miserable appearance," muttered someone else's mother. Couldn't her parents buy her a decent dress? Have you heard, poor girl, what people say? Igor shook his hands when he heard these remarks. "Go away, you ragamuffin." Alyona turned around and, hiding her tears, left. No one would catch up with her. She wandered around the city half the night, and when she got home, her mother asked, "How was the prom?" Everything was great. Alina cried into her pillow the rest of the night. No one, absolutely no one, stood up for her. The girl swore that one day her classmates would regret everything. Amazingly, the very next day God rewarded Alina for all her suffering. "Alyonka," she heard her mother's voice. "Are you still asleep? What is it?" "The art salon called. Some rich foreigner bought our jewelry, and he's ordering more. The dream is gone." "Really?" exclaimed Alyona and threw herself on her mother's neck. "So this is cool." Of course it is. From that day on, things in the Kirillov family went uphill. Mother and daughter met a foreigner who turned out to be Russian. George, formerly Georgie, had lived in the States for many years and had come to Russia on business. George got into Alyona's story and said, "I'll help you, girl. I used to be poor too, but now I don't need anything. And you will have everything." George didn't cheat. Now Alyona is the owner of 2 clothing and accessory stores in the capital city. Tatiana had an operation and now she can see. Big, you say? Well, now any model would envy her figure. And all the classes with one of the best fitness trainers. Shaking off the remnants of memories, Alyona firmly decided, "I'll go and do beautifully." God knows I've waited a long time for this. Now she knew what she would do. Alina herself will organize a reunion at the restaurant. All that remained was to know where the banquet would be. The tables of the best place were bursting with delicacies. Live music was playing. The hall was decorated with balloons and flowers. "Are you sure it was for us?" Lydia asked the manager. "Yes, of course," smiled a pretty brunette. "We're having a promotion, so part of the food and drinks, as well as the decorations and live music, are on the house. Thank you. Everyone shouted at each other. Good evening. There's no beggar girl here, Oksana remarked. Does it bother you that much? Grinned Oleg Kunitsin, with whom they were now married. No, just wondering. Well, I wrote to her, said Lida. She replied, asked what restaurant the meeting would be. That was the end of it. Probably can't afford it. Anyway, she's living in some shack with a drunken bum. So what if she is? And then the waiters came out and started serving everyone a photo from the prom. On the back of the photo was the caption, "Why am I not here?" The guests looked at each other. Nippy, that's the one. A cheerful voice was heard from the stage. Classmates amicably turned their heads and saw a slender dark-haired beauty in a luxurious iridescent dress. So who missed me there? They were stunned. We didn't expect that, said Elena, and I pay for part of the banquet. No, you're welcome. I know how you're all hungry for freebies. Don't blame me, but I did some research on you, and I made a surprising discovery. It turns out that none of you, with a few exceptions, have achieved anything. Leda, how can you get so fat? At our age, Leda flared up, but did not respond, and Alyona came down from the stage and approached Igor. He was pathetic to look at. His front teeth were missing, and his baldness and shortness of breath made Igor look like an ugly, drunken old man. Alyona found out that after the death of his parents he drank himself to death. So, Igor, she asked, so which one of us is a bum? The people present felt uncomfortable. What was it? They were ready to fall through the earth. The sumptuous dinner was a pain in the ass. And Alyona said, now, logically, I should kick you out of here. You remember me from the prom. Igor's face turned red, and the others didn't look any better either. But I'm not going to do that. I'll go myself. I will not spoil the view. So eat, drink, and be merry. I gotta go. Business can't wait. Well, that's it. Now Alina finally let go of the past.